Welcome to Critter Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions to help animals. I'm Missy Woodward. Today I have an exceptional guest, someone who is carrying on a legacy, making a difference in the world for animals and humans. I'd like to welcome Jennifer Pryor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So you are the wife of Richard Pryor, the famed comedian, famed actor, humanitarian, and a fabulous all-round guy.
And a little nuts, and I married him twice, so I'm a little nuts too.
Twice? So tell me the story of how you met and all of you with Richard.
Well, I actually met Richard back in the 70s, late 70s, and I worked for him first. And actually he married somebody else while I was working for him, but wild horses couldn't drag me away. And eventually we started talking and dating after his marriage fell apart. Ended up marrying a few years later. And of course, because of, you know, the party time that was the early 80s and all that includes and involves, marriage fell apart, big surprise. Moved back east. And I started to look at everything and put my life back together. I wrote a book, and my first rescue was on the FDR Drive on 50th Street in New York City.
I know that.
Yeah,
I know that area.
You know that area at Beekman Place, and a dog had been thrown out of a truck, and somebody brought the dog to me, and I already had a shepherd whom I had bought from a breeder before my consciousness was raised. And I thought, and this dog, Tiberius, my shepherd, had epilepsy, and I thought this would help with the epilepsy somehow. It did not. We ultimately had to put the shepherd down. But I also learned at that time about how mixes are healthier dogs. And so Livia Lecter Lee, Richard used to call her, because I had to muzzle her on the street. She'd go after men. She'd bite them in the ass. She was a great dog, though. Oh, she was an amazing dog. She was my first rescue. And when I moved back out in 1994 to be with Richard again, she came with, and I had her for 16 years. And she really taught me and opened my, I believe that she taught me how to love. I truly believe that. She was a magnificent animal, had been so abused. And at that time, I started understanding their capacity for forgiveness, no matter what they had been through. Not that she really ever totally forgave men. You'd have to get to know her. My male friends would have to get to know her, and before she would warm up, of course. But her general capacity to love again is fantastic, and that really taught me how to love. I mean this, and I get a little choked up when I talk about it. And so Richard and I got back together in '94. His life was a tumult at that point. He had MS and he wasn't doing well, and he asked me to come back and help him. Things were kind of falling apart, and Richard and I had a lot of forgiveness for one another to experience and to go through. And in the following years, until his death, we did just that, and we did a lot of loving and a lot of forgiveness, let go of all that past and the debris of the past. And we formed Pryor's Planet, an animal rights organization, rights and rescue organization, rescued a ton of animals, and a lot of advocacy. Richard worked on a lot of campaigns for PETA and other organizations, repatriating baby elephants that were stolen from their mothers for the circus in Botswana. Wonderful. And Richard found a renewed purpose in his life. He wasn't on the stage anymore, and he wasn't acting anymore, obviously. So this gave him great focus and great purpose and great joy, and was very rewarding for him. And he had two rescue dogs who he loved very much and kept by his side throughout those years. But the forgiveness that we went through and experienced, and reclaiming our love, and the renewal, and finding our way to agape, to a deeper love, if you will. I really credit the animals for that, I have to tell you. They taught us both, and they led us both, and they guided us both. And it was sort of a natural phenomenon progression that we would start Pryor's Planet and carry on this mission, calling, if you will, to rescue animals. And it's one of the most fantastic missions of my life, the other, of course, is Richard's legacy and his work and carrying that on and doing a film on his life, and I'm writing my second book and all of that. But it's a dual purpose, that focus that I have every morning I wake up. And as you know yourself, rescue is so time-consuming.
Absolutely.
And can swallow you up. So it's, 24/7.
So yours is your focus now more on dogs, or you're still doing the, and you mentioned the elephants and everything. What is your scope with Pryor's Planet?
Well, the scope is general advocacy. I mean, I advocate for animals to be treated humanely, with respect and dignity and care and love in all manner and form. Elephants how we treat in farming, how we treat the animals, the farm bill. So advocacy is obviously a huge part of what I do, but I also I am in the trenches. We go into the shelters, we go to landfills, we pull from the street, right now with the foreclosures, there are so many people dumping their animals.
Yes.
I don't get it, but this is, a lot of people just can't keep their animals when they're being evicted, so they call groups like Pryor's Planet, and we take the animals and rehab them, board them, find fosters for them, whatever, until we can rehome them and find good, loving homes.
Now, you say that so easily. Oh, yes, we get them, we rehome them, we foster them. I know that each one of those elements is huge.
It's huge.
Now, you say you go to the shelter and you get an animal. What happens? Because how do you even find the fosters? How do you find the money to get the medical bills? I mean, every rescue I talk to always goes, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. Now, each of those thises is so enormous. Tell me what that process is for you on a daily basis, what you have to go through.
We scramble. I mean, we say it easily, I think, because we're so inured to and used to the struggle and what we have to go through on a daily basis. It's enormous. You're quite right. Each of these elements, each of these steps, calls for money, calls for energy. Where do these fosters come from? Fosters aren't easy to find. If anybody wants to foster for us, I urge them to contact us at Pryor's Planet, and we will, sometimes I will pay fosters, but certainly we pay for food and medical. We obviously accept donations, and we send fundraiser letters out, and we have annual fundraiser. I will be doing one around Christmas time annually, and you're quite right. It is, oh my gosh, it's a Band-Aid situation. I mean, but we scramble, and somehow we find solutions. Not for every situation.
Right,
sometimes we have to say no, and it kills me to say no, and it's painful. Every rescue, it kills to say no, and it's because it costs a fortune. I mean, you can spend so much money, and then you barter with the boarding facility, or you barter with the vet. And can you give me a better rescue rate, please? Can you, so we're.
That's what I'd like to hear. See, now that you're talking about the reality, when people say what they do, it really isn't. And sometimes we all live on email. Yeah. Sometimes you will go through a string of emails over a 4-day period of time. You might have 50 emails a day. You're putting e-blasts out. Everybody's getting cross posts about this, cross posts about that. How do you find your core of volunteers? How do you go out and get those people to work with you and to commit to you? Is it that continual message of what Richard was talking about, what you both have talked about? How do you find your people? Because somebody may say, why do I want to work and help support Pryor's Planet and volunteer?
Well, it's every day we try to get the message out in some way or another. We have a website, obviously, Pryor's Planet website, and we do adoptions every Sunday at Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard in front of Washington Mutual. And a lot of people come up to us and say, we would like to volunteer. We'd like to work with you. Friends of friends will call and say, I really want to get involved. I saw you on the street, or I saw you talking somewhere, and I really want to help you, and I get it, and I would like to join you. And of course, we have to vet them and make sure, we do applications, and for fosters too, they have to fill out applications, do home checks, and make sure that, every dog is a big journey, as you have just been asking me. It's every dog. You have to make sure that if you're rehoming, you're going to that home and finding out if it's going to be a good home, or is it secure enough? Is it?
And people sometimes give rescues a bad rap for that, but the reason is you have a policy, I'm sure, that you'll take back an animal.
Absolutely, and we have.
And why do you want to have to do that if you've given it? you know, adopted it out to the wrong people.
Well,
because
exactly.
it's going to end up in the shelter, or it's going to come back to you.
Exactly. And I always say, we're not doing this to put a dog back into harm's way.
Right.
We're doing this to do it right, 100% right, not 99%, not 95%, but 100%. The right way for that dog to find love and forever to be in a safe place. So we do have a 4-page application, and it's very interesting. We might get 5 calls for for a certain dog, and we'll send the applications out to them. Gee, where's that application? Guess they scared off, which is good, because
You'd rather cull through.
We're culling through, and we're eliminating those people, which is what we do with volunteers too. If the volunteers don't work, some volunteers come and they work for a couple of weekends, and they see it's a lot of work, and they can't hang, So it's okay, bye-bye,
Right.
We hang tough, and we're here. We're not going anywhere. We're here. But you're quite right. The process of finances and volunteers and boarding facilities and, oh my God, fosters, it's an ongoing, every day we're looking, and every day it's never something that's like settled, every day it's very fluid.
Right.
Very fluid.
How do you choose the animals? Let's say you go to a shelter and you're going to pull some animals. How do you choose which animal? And I know this is the gut-wrenching question. How do you choose that animal that's going to get out of that cell?
Sometimes you just have to go by the one that speaks to you the loudest. I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry? This is real. Yeah.
There's so many animals that are killed every year, and I don't know if people know that. For instance, the people who are being evicted now, and I'm not judging them because I know they're in financial straits, right. But if they could please think twice about what they're doing. I don't know if they understand that a shelter doesn't mean it's a no-kill sanctuary. It is going to keep your dog maybe 5 days, maybe 10 at the most. Maybe if there's a shelter working in there that finds this dog to, really loves that dog, it's going to stay. If it doesn't get adopted, it's going to be killed.
Right.
And they don't understand that. And the rate of killing now in Los Angeles is at an all-time high. And it's tragic. Wonderful, wonderful dogs are killed every day. I mean,
young ones.
Young ones. Oh my God.
That's not just the seniors. I mean, seniors do get adopted too, which is good for people to know. And people don't understand. I think that the other thing they don't understand, because I always try to play devil's advocate on some things. These people that have lost everything and they've got to go somewhere. There are landlords that do not understand that if they were to rent out to people with animals, they will get a better type renter.
That's right.
And everything.
Absolutely.
And this is where an advocacy issue could really, I think, be so much more important than almost anything, in the sense we can make so many new homes for animals if landlords would understand what good renters there are with animals, because these people literally have to move somewhere. And what I see over and over again is people say, I can't get a place that will allow me to have pets. Because, yes, they've lost their home, so they've got to move to an apartment or some sort of facility.
That's right.
They can't do that. So the situation is, how do we go out and do that? So that's advocacy. Tell me more about what you're doing as an advocate.
Well, first of all, we're trying to educate people when they call us and they say, I've got this, little dog that I can't keep anymore, or whatever kind of dog. Can you take the dog? We try to explain to them, here's what's going to happen. First of all, if we say no to you today and you take that dog to the shelter, here is what's going to happen. So please understand that, first of all, us taking it, can you give us a donation? First of all, we'll ask for that. Right. Of course, usually they can't, because they're already in financial straits, right? So we try to explain to them, is there any way you can, try to find a landlord who will take that? Now, you're right about landlords, and I heard that Council Cardenas is considering or trying to put a bill together that speaks to this issue you're speaking to. And addressing landlords directly about accepting more pets, because it's outrageous that they get to say no. What are they scared of? A little pee on a carpet or floor? When in the long run, you make such a wonderful point that they're getting a better family. They're getting a better tenant in there.
Because they want to be with their animals. They come home to walk them. They're there with them.
Yes.
They have responsibilities, so they actually get a better deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I know you're also an advocate for farm animals. We have some video about you talking about important legislation that has occurred and other legislation that goes on. I'd like to go ahead and play that and let people see what you talk about and what you speak to.
I think it's really archaic medieval that we are living in this day and age, demonstrating no compassion for animals. I just saw Amazing Grace today about the slave trade, human slave trade in the 18th century. And it really is analogous to the animal situation. To keep them crated and locked up and imprisoned, watching them die, not caring if they die or become ill and need to be thrown away, disposed of, is beyond unconscionable. I'm a vegetarian, sometimes vegan. I am unwilling to put anything in my body, certainly, that suffers for me, dies for me. When I certainly can sustain myself in other ways. I'm not necessarily advocating vegetarianism. However, I am advocating the humane treatment of animals, all animals. We all die, but on the way we can live a good life. So on the way to their end, to end up on our dinner plates or breakfast meals, they can be treated humanely, and they must be. For us not to show compassion in the way these animals are treated denies our own humanity. And we suffer as a nation and as a planet for it. And we will pay a price. I believe we're paying it now.
Wow. That's incredible, because you're talking about legislation to allow animals that are going to slaughter to at least be able to turn around or touch their legs, do something before they're slaughtered.
Yeah.
And so it's incremental change that you're advocating for. And I understand that, you know, everybody's got to speak about different subjects. We don't expect everybody to believe in what we believe in, right. Anybody in what they believe in. But you speak out for what you believe in.
Yes.
What other subjects do you talk about, do you advocate for, and where do you get an opportunity to do that? Well,
you know, you're giving me one right now, and by the way, thank you very much for that. I'm very grateful. Speaking to the issue of slaughter and animals, farm animals, you're quite right. I mean, it's ridiculous that they can't be treated humanely on their way to slaughter. I was just back east and was around people who, my sister has a dairy farm. They're on waterbeds. They stand on waterbeds, by the way, not on cement. But I realized that, you know, vegetarianism, people, that's a long haul. You know, people are going to really loathe to give up their meat. Okay, so very good, let them have it. But again, what I would like to see now in terms of slaughter, because the slaughterhouses, the fear and what that animal goes through to try to get away from being killed is horrible. So you're not only eating their suffering, you're eating their fear. So why?
Physically, it's adrenaline that goes through their body.
That's right.
Cortisol. People need
cortisol.
to understand the actual physical thing that goes through the body of the animal.
It's poison.
Yes.
It's poison to us when, pardon me, we have when we become adrenalized, and the same thing with an animal. And we literally are eating poison. But again, let them have their meat. However, why can't there be humane slaughter, pre-sedation? I mean, you know, I'm not, you know, I really want to look at that issue. I mean, vegetarian and vegans and vegetarians will look at me appalled and say, well, you know, how can you talk about humane slaughter? Well, I think we must, because we are not going to get people to stop eating meat. You may not eat meat, I may not eat meat, and certain people don't eat it, fine. But over here, there's a whole country that does. And so to bring that awareness is really important. Other ways that other forums that I have, obviously, are emails and my website, and at adoption events I get to talk one-on-one to people. I am writing a second book, and I'm going to talk about this in, you know, this sort of second chapter of my life now is so dedicated to animal rescue. I'm really going to discuss this in my book. And I'm so proud of it. I feel very privileged and honored to stand up for the animals. I really do. I get very emotional. But
that's so well, and it's what you're about, and it's what your life with Richard was about. And carrying that legacy, to me, which I think is such an honor towards him, but also what you've done. And when I looked at your website, you know, talking about individual rights and rights of humans and rights of animals, and even just the picture of him with all the different animals in there, and from Africa to America to small animals to large animals. You know, I think when somebody has a feeling about something or really cares, they have to express it, and it comes out. And that's why I have this show, so I can talk to people about why they do what they do, why they give it their time, their money, their weekends, their everything. And it really is that you care about the voiceless. And so Richard had a message. Fortunately, he was able to use his fame and his voice for that, and it's a legacy that you're carrying on. So you're teaching others, and you're carrying on that with Richard. Are there other new, younger people that are coming on board that are understanding that message when you go out and speak?
Absolutely. And you know, the thing about Richard, and you mentioned Africa, and that is part of, you know, the second part of my legacy, of course, is carrying on Richard's work so that the younger generation knows that Richard Pryor was the guy who broke down the barriers for not only for comedy, but for, you know, a great stage for all of us, really, to look at human dignity. When we went to Africa the first time, by the way, Richard was like a child, you know. He was so happy to get there and say, you know, Jenny, you know, look at the animals. This is where I'm from. You know, of course, I had to tell him where we're all from here, actually. You know, right. The first man stood up here, dude. Exactly. We're all from here. Yeah. But we were in the lobby of the Hilton Hotel in Nairobi, and he looked around, and he said, "Jen, my God." I said, "What, Richard?" He goes, "There are no ends here." I'm not going to say the N word. And that is the dignity, the human dignity, to which I referred to in that video clip, that we all must look at. And it's animals, it's treating one another, it's treating the environment with compassion and love, or we will pay a price. Our souls will pay a price. In fact, this country right now is at a huge turning point. Hello? I mean, what's going on right now? It's huge. And it's going to be huge for quite a long time. And I really believe that, you know, there's such a thing as karma, and we really have to wake up and start realizing that we have to treat animals and one another and the environment with more love and dignity.
Well, I know that you are doing many different kinds of projects. What do you see the future for Pryor's Planet? What is your wish for Pryor's Planet?
Oh my gosh. It's so interesting. Organically, it's growing on its own. It's getting bigger and bigger. So my wish is, of course, that I get better funding so that I can expand and get, you know, do more, rescue more, do more advocacy, and just, you know, be able to have more outreach and be more effective. And that's my dream, and I believe I will reach it, because I think the universe supports this in such a great way.
And what about your dream for shelter animals?
Oh, that there will be no more, that we will stop breeding, that we have an awareness, that they feel pain and they feel joy and they suffer, and it's not okay to treat them this way. Shelter animals will all, the ones in the shelter now, I pray every night, dear God, please, let's find homes for these babies, all of them, but let's not put them there. Shelter animals don't need to, I would love to see one day that we don't need shelters.
Right.
We don't need them, because people will not be breeding. Right. People will be more responsible and loving.
Right. Well, there are other cities, there are other countries that now, I know I had someone come to my home for something with spay and neuter of cats, and she's from Germany, and she said, in Germany we can't even imagine putting an animal to sleep. Putting an animal to sleep, we don't even understand that. And so it's a consciousness some countries have. I know other cities are passing legislation that is very helpful towards that. I know you know, recently Las Vegas just allowed colonies of cats, or its trap, neuter, return is allowed. You know, there's different messages and different ordinances and different legislation that's happening. I think we're in a very progressive time.
I think you're right.
So I think everybody's wish now is getting closer to what they want to have happen. Yeah. So someone can go on the internet and look up Pryor's Planet.
Yes.
They can go on Sundays, did you say is your adoption? Or
Sundays.
Sundays.
Sunday.
At what time?
11 to 3, Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard.
Okay, Laurel Canyon, Ventura Boulevard in Studio City.
Yes.
They can get in contact. They can find out ways that they can become volunteers.
Yes.
They can get involved with your events.
Yes.
And all those different things. And also they can look for you wherever you might show up. I know that you've, like you said, you've written a book. You've got other things, and more success for you on what you're going to be doing, because I know your energy level and what you're about, and of course the legacy of Richard. And anybody can sit and go on any channel on the internet and just laugh their heads off when they watch something by Richard Pryor and know that he's the man behind the mission, and that both of you together have made such an incredible change and difference for animals, and we thank you for doing that.
I'm honored to be able to do it.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us here on Critter Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions to help animals. Go out, you can make a difference. Remember, don't litter, spay and neuter. You can go out there and you can do different things for animals. You can volunteer, you can show up at adoptions and help out. Even if it's one day a week, you can write letters. Write your legislators, tell them what the difference that they can make if they go and vote differently and do something for animals. So thanks for joining us, and see you soon. Take care. And you know what?